Today's date is 10/9/22. We're in Evansville, Indiana. We're here with three of the McGrews. And the McGrews grew up in Posey County in Mount Vernon, and they're here on top of the Hoosier Spirit too. Bill, who's in the center with his two sisters on each side, worked on Hoosier Spirit 2. It was called Tar Heel How. He retired Air Force, but did volunteer work in Galveston, Texas, when the Lone Star Museum was in Galveston. He also has visited the Lone Star Museum since it moved to a suburb of Houston. Now, Bill, why don't you introduce yourself and then let your two sisters introduce them.
I'm William McGrew, born and raised in Mount Vernon, Indiana. Went to school in Indiana, Mount Vernon.
Then why'd you leave Mount Vernon and where did you go for your Air Force career?
I joined the Air Force in 1955. Went to Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. Became an aircraft mechanic after that.
And what different types of planes and where did you serve?
Served in Seward Air Force Base, Tennessee, which is now closed. Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. Clark Air Force Base, Philippines. And Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma.
And then you retired in the Texas area, the Corpus Christi area, Houston area, and then you helped with this plane you're standing next to. And tell us why you wanted to help out with this plane.
Oh, yeah, I retired in 75, stayed in Houston, Texas, because I worked there. And later, about 1999, I wanted to join the crew at the Lone Star because working on World War II aircraft has always been high on my bucket list. So I went down there and interviewed with them, and they found out I was an aircraft mechanic trained in the Air Force, and they took me on, let me join them, and worked down there for 14 years on everything they had. And,
Between 1970s and 99, who did you work for as an airplane mechanic?
I didn't.
What did you do?
I was with Xerox Corporation.
Huh. For 20 years.
I was, yeah, 20, in fact, 25 years.
What'd you do for them?
I was a copier tech, worked on copier printers.
But you are an airplane mechanic and certified airplane mechanic.
Yes.
Okay, now these two pretty ladies next to you, let's introduce introduce them and then let them say a little bit of where they live and what they've done during their lives and any memories of Bill as a child.
I'm Nonny, McGrew-Diekman, grew up in Mount Vernon, graduated from Mount Vernon High School in 1964. Then I actually moved to Birmingham and lived with my sister here for a year and a half there. And her husband was a Marine. When they got transferred, I came back to Evansville and met my husband, Ed Diekman. And we were married 54 years when he passed this past January. And I retired from Fifth Third Bank.
And Mrs. Diekman, your father-in-law was Mr. Diekman. Can you tell us about his history and the history of Mayor Dress?
That was my husband's grandfather.
Husband's grandfather, okay.
Yes. He completed the term of mayor when Mayor Dress passed.
About 1950 to 52 or in that range.
I did not get to meet him. I'm not sure what year that was.
What stories did your husband say about his grandfather?
Oh, he loved his grandfather very much. He was a great man. He always talked about how much he helped people, was just always there, for anybody, during his time, and just a very good man, very good man.
Diekman's a very prestigious name here, very important in Evansville, especially since he replaced Mayor Dress, and Mayor Dress was one of the 10 people that were instrumental in getting the P-47 contract here in Evansville, Indiana. Mayor Dress is Dress Plaza is named after, that's where our boats are in front, and also Dress Airport is named after him. Now I'm gonna let your sister talk and introduce your name, maiden name with new name now.
Okay, Barbara McGrew-Luttrell, born in Mount Vernon, Indiana, went to Mount Vernon schools, and came back here and went to school and finished at USI. Married to Captain Roy Luttrell, as he was when he passed away. He was an ordnance officer, 3rd Marine Division, and he was in the military for 24 years.
And he was probably stationed everywhere.
Yes,
So you've been everywhere in the world.
quite a few places.
Yeah, yeah. So he's mostly in the West or over in Europe or mostly in the United States?
What would you say he was?
Pretty much around the United States, Camp Lejeune,
Yeah,
Birmingham, Alabama,
yeah, but
California.
but where he went, I couldn't think of the place. You know, he was in Vietnam.
Vietnam,
Uh,
not Thailand,
Uh,
Taiwan.
yeah, Greenland. I can't remember all the places he did.
Most Marines would eat nails. Did he eat a lot of nails?
He's a tough guy, but a very good guy.
They could have to do a lot of push-ups and chin-ups, so he's probably pretty physically fit.
He was a true Marine.
Yeah, yeah.
But a good guy. He let his 17-year-old sister, his wife's sister, move in with them.
Yeah. But Semper Fi, people don't understand, but Semper Fi, you probably know what it means. Always faithful, and those Marines are always faithful to their own, more so than you'd ever find any high school football team, any sorority, any fraternity. Semper Fi is always faithful, and a company of Marines is just unbelievable in what they.
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah, never, always a Marine. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing. You brought your brother here. Without you two ladies, your brother probably wouldn't be here today.
I contacted Nancy and off it went.
She goes to church with Nancy Sanderson at Eastminster Church here in Evansville, so that's how we got to contact. Now, I would like you to reflect a little bit on this plane. Bill, we can do it from up there or do it down here, and we can walk around the plane and let you talk about different aspects of the plane. Why don't you talk about the cockpit, and then we'll come down and we'll talk about other parts. Just about the cockpit, anything interesting on that people should know about?
And tell them about what.
He worked on this plane for 14 years, so he knows a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a single place. Pilot, the other lady there was talking about the seat don't have a cushion in it, and that's because of the parachute. Pilot wears a parachute, and it's square pack, and it is your seat. That's why it don't have a foam seat in it. And it's got, standard controls in it, everything you need to operate the airplane.
Louder.
And we made one modification to it down at the museum, that one of the pilots, the chief pilot that we liked, he complained about it being hot. So another volunteer made, we went to scrounge up some miscellaneous parts, and we made a butterfly air valve to put in it, and took the air tube off of one of the intakes on the wing, so we'd have air coming in. And he really liked that. It made a big difference in him. It's still in there. I wondered if they took it out or not after I left.
Yeah.
But it's still there.
And most of those gauges up there, Bill, are what you call steam gauges. It's a six-pack's in a normal plane, which has your altitude, your speed, and your direction. Are those still in there that you see?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Along with your oil pressure and RPM.
And gas.
Yeah. Probably. I'm not sure it's got a gas gauge. We always dipped it with a stick.
And how many gallons did this hold, this plane?
Tag on there, just cheese, 270 gallons.
Did people like to look at this plane when they're down there? And it flew about several times a year. A guy named Tuna would fly it. When it flew, it was pretty loud. When it flew around here in Evansville, because it was a test plane, tested all those planes here in Evansville, when we took a bunch of people to Old National Bank here on the top floor, we had 25 World War II veterans, and many of their spouses were here. And when they heard the sound of this plane, which is very loud, they all had tears in their eyes. So tell us about the sound of this plane.
This thing has a real beautiful sound from the mechanic. And it's a very reliable airplane.
And did you?
28 cylinders and all of them pumping, it makes a good noise.
Yeah. And up there to the props, did you ever have any prop problem up there? Those props are gigantic, 6 feet in diameter each.
No, the prop on this plane here, we never had a problem with it. It was very, very reliable.
And I've got a picture on the engine up there. We have another engine here like it, but the engine, did you have many problems with the 18 cylinders?
Not on the P-47.
Uh-huh.
No. It was, once in a while we'd have a liquid lock. If it sat too long, and drain down in the cylinder, it'd lock it up. We'd have to take spark plugs out, drain the oil out, and get it running again. But
Can you tell us the advantage of the air-cooled versus water-cooled in World War II and at other times?
so air cooled, you can't damage it by shooting at it. That's a big deal.
Did you ever have to change the gas tank and see the rubber that lined to the outside of the gas tank?
Not on the P-47. I've changed gas tanks on numerous other aircraft. The P-47 gas tank never gave us any trouble.
But a lot of the other gas tanks in World War II, they did do the double seal rubber. So you saw that. Did the rubber disintegrate, or it seemed to hold up?
It would, over a long period of time, it'd get ultra soft and basically kind of get gummy and almost dissolve inside.
Was it outside a metal tank and it was 2 layers of rubber, or was it actually part of the tank itself?
No, it was separate, like a bladder.
A bladder. Uh-huh.
Like a bladder, rubber bladder inside a metal housing.
What kind of gasoline do you use in this? I think they used 140 octane. They moved it down, and it can't go 100% with the lower octane. Can you talk about the octane you used?
Well, we used 100 octane at the museum, but it was designed to build at 145, 115 octane.
So when Tuna flew this down here, he couldn't go at 100% because he didn't have 140 octane in there. He had to go at 65% or so.
I don't know the percentage because I'm not a pilot, but I do know the engine would not perform to its best with 100 octane. It just don't do it.
And did you ever have a problem with this plane, the wheels coming down, going back up, or any problem with the with these flaps or the wheels here?
No,
Nothing.
very, very reliable design.
How about the aileron? Did it work all right? Aileron work? Okay.
Aileron?
Yes, aileron.
No, they broke.
They didn't have any problem.
We hardly ever found a problem when I inspected them. I was one of the main inspectors on the annual.
The wires that controlled all these wings and things, did the wires, you had to replace wires a lot, and did wires hold up from World War II, or did you replace all those?
Very little. The only wiring problem I ever worked on this plane is one of the lights on the tail end went out, and one of the wires got brittle and broke. The rest of the wiring was, as far as I know, well, it may have been changed on a rebuild before the museum got it.
What do you think about planes like this from World War II? A lot of people are interested in warbirds. What do you think about the history of our aviation, the history of World War II, where the Industrial Revolution really woke up in World War II? But do you think these warbirds are going to stay flying across the United States with the Lone Star Museum, also that other museum in Texas, commemorative Air Force?
I am really concerned about the warbird because between my opinion that the government really would rather that none of them flew. The price of gas and the price of insurance is probably going to ground all of them in just a very few number of years in the future.
Well, it's a sad state of affairs, but it may be true, it may not. We don't know.
I think it will happen.
Yeah. Just the insurance on this to fly this plane, it's extraordinary amount of insurance. I don't know how Lone Star can afford. They've got 30 plus planes that they fly all the time, and it's a very costly thing just for insurance, just for gas, just for upkeep. The maintenance on a plane like this is unbelievable. And for you as a volunteer, you did all your time for nothing. That's how they got a lot of things, because a mechanic like you, it's $80 an hour, and the hours you spent, I don't know how many hours you spent in 14 years, but probably a lot.
It was, in 14 years, I got in over 8,000.
8,000 hours at $14 or at $80 an hour, say $100 an hour. I put 2 zeros on the back of, would you say 14,000 hours? 1 zero is 140. 2 zeros, well, you only made 1.4 million you gave to the United States for history. So that's a pretty big donation of time. I might be inflating those numbers a little bit, but that's an awful big service to our country.
If you multiply that by, we had approximately 75 volunteers at any one time.
So-
working different jobs, dozens, restorers, mechanics.
So 75 times a million, you're 75 million of volunteer service, where they say the United States population, 1/3 of us are doing volunteer work. And what you see there is our elder population is our wisest part of our population, and we have to utilize these people for their talents that they have. And you're a prime example of that. And we have to utilize them. We can't throw all of us out to pasture. What do you think about the volunteerism that you saw at Lone Star?
We had some really dedicated volunteers. They'd come down regularly every week.
What made them so happy with their volunteerism? Was it they felt proud about it, or they felt congeniality, or what was the formula why they would come back?
Well, the ones I worked with was like me. They were aircraft nuts. they loved the airplanes.
Yeah.
Of course, the museum people, the director of the museum was a very friendly, cordial guy. And that's not what they got now, but he's gone, he's not there now, but that kind of person helps volunteers stay there.
Yeah. Well, it's the cornerstone of our nation, and volunteerism, development, all these types of things. It's after we've had the best civilization the world will ever see. We have to preserve it for our ancestors. And what you said earlier when we had a discussion is the younger generation doesn't know how we got our freedom or why we got our freedom and how important our freedom is. And
They don't understand what people did back in World War II. They don't understand what these aircraft meant. Without these aircraft, we probably wouldn't have won the war.
it's the greatest generation, you know, and I don't have the exact figure how many aircraft were built in World War II, but I think there were 300,000 different planes built in World War II in a 4-year period of time, and fighter and bombers and transport planes over 100,000, but there are a lot of other trainer planes and peripheral. I may have those numbers wrong, but it's an amazing feat that we did in World War II, and the greatest generation did that, and they preserved our freedom. But they had what you call work ethic, and you've seen some of that work ethic in some of those volunteers down there. There's no end to the work.
Yeah, the way they work, there's one example, wasn't this airplane, but we had a fuel tank change on the Corsair. And the director of the museum said we wouldn't be flying the Corsair at the air show that weekend. And we worked almost all night Friday night, got the tank in the airplane, tested it early next morning, and we flew the air show.
There's a will, there's a way. Yeah. Well, I can't thank all three of you enough. Any special stories about Bill as a kid, ladies, that you can reflect on that show some of his character? I mean, I don't know if character is nature or nurture. Was it genetic, or was it nature or nurture from mom and dad? Where did he get this strong character and strong work ethic? Either one of you.
From parents.
Yes, especially our mother.
Your mother had a strong work ethic.
Very much.
Give me her full name and maiden name.
Helen Louise Walker McGrew.
Helen Louise Walker McGrew, and Walker. She grew up in Posey,
Illinois.
Southern Illinois. What county?
Front Prairie.
Burnt Prairie, okay. That's just across Burnt Prairie, okay. But Dad had work ethic too. Did he work in Posey County as well? Yeah. Behind good men.
Mother was just exceptional.
Mother was exceptional. Why was she such a...
She was very close to her.
Why did she have such a strong work ethic? Why?
Because it was fine. So we, out of the recession, into the war, and all of that, and she knew how to make things stretch a little farther, and we just never knew there was any shortage of anything. But I mean, she was just that good of a person, and if you wanted it, you worked for it, you made it, or built it, or painted it, or did it yourself.
Did she waste a lot?
No.
That generation, though, when they grow up in a recession, they think the banks are all going to close, and they're scared of their money. When they grow up like that, they are so fearful that they never spend anything because they know it's all going to be gone. It's amazing, but I think our pet family teaches us so much, and that's probably they grew three good kids. You're the only three, right? How many more? 10 of you? Oh my gosh!
Now, one Sunday, there was two brothers from Mount Vernon that was with us Sunday, but they didn't get in.
They were supposed to be here. They didn't make it. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't make it today.
Yeah, not today, but they were here. They were here Sunday.
Were they in the Air Force too, or military?
My brother was Air Force, my other brother was Army.
Yeah. Big. That's 3 out of 10, 30% military. It's rare in this day and age. World War II, about everybody was in.
I got a third brother that was Army too.
So 4 out of 10, so 40% military. None of the girls.
And the rest were girls.
Yeah, the rest were girls, yeah. But you look at that, you see today's day and age, that would be a rare event to have 4 out of 4 men in a family in the military. And, it's not the same as it was during your generation and even during your mom and dad's generation. Your dad in any of the wars?
No.
So he was a different age bracket, probably between World War I and World War II.
When war broke out, he had too many kids.
Yeah, too many kids would be an exclusion. Also, having a farm would be an exclusion. But too many kids, that excluded because he had to support. Yeah.
One note I'd like to add, so you have it on your record about my mother. She worked for the Booker.
Oh, wow.
She was a bucker. When the people were bucking, driving rivets, she was on the other side of them.
So you told the story earlier about how your hand would vibrate because of the buck. It was a gun pushing to make the rivet, but on the other side it was called the bucker, B-U-C-K-E-R, and held a piece of steel or iron on the other side, which was heavy, and they had to tolerate the vibration. So she came all the way, drove in from Posey County here every day with 10 kids, and she made good money though. Riveters made good money at that time, 3 times what a restaurant waitress would make. But she worked hard and had to support the kids during a very tough time. So she probably was at Republic for 4 years.
I don't know how long she worked, but she was over here.
Yeah.
And I remember when we had to stay with her grandma while she was working.
Yeah. There wasn't 10 at that point.
So there was
The others hadn't come along yet.
But that exactly what you just said. A lot of kids, like Donna Bone here in town, she's on our, she's from Posey County, she's on our board, but she talked about her mother and dad. Her dad was in World War II, mother worked, but the kids would a lot of times stay with the grandparents because there wasn't what you call daycare. Some of these places invented daycare, but there wasn't daycare, so they had to stay with grandparents. Some people would stay with grandparents for a year, the whole time. So grandparents are a good place to have your kids grow up. So a couple of you probably had to grow with grandparents for a while.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah. It's a tremendous evolution of work ethic, and what we talked about is Evansville in the tri-state area. 80,000 workers in World War II on the war effort, the highest per capita in the whole population of the United States, the highest per capita in the world, and partly your mother. Her maiden name was Walker, and her married name McGrew, and her first name was Ellen. How'd she meet her husband from Burnt Prairie? How'd she find him in Poseyville? Or how'd he find her?
She came over to Posey County to stay with her sister because she was expecting. And that's when she met him.
I see. Well, good, good. Okay, well, thank you for everything. Do you have anything else to add?
No, except I know now what she felt as a booker,
Yes.
because as a mechanic at the Lone Star, we did everything, every facet of the maintenance, and I did some bucking down there for a while when the sheep bell people had to do a job and they needed a hand. I did that.
Until you experienced it, you didn't know what she went through. And then your left hand and your right hand both hurt. They still hurt.
Yeah, I had no idea what she did until I
Yeah.
tried it myself.
You ladies have never done any of that work on the riveting, have you? Okay, well, we can't thank you enough. I'm glad you came to town and glad you ladies are part of this. Come on back. Don't be strangers. Love to have you. Bring the whole Eastminster Church. We'll bring them here for a group talk. We'll also take them to Eaglehart Gardens. Okay, that would be a group, also your church group or anything like that. We use church, and even we're doing Holy Rosary out here, some of their people. We'd love to have you. Thank you very much. Say your names again one more time.
Nonny Diekman.
William McGrew.
Barbara Luttrell.
Thank you very much.